Listen very carefully and follow my instructions. Prepare your brain for the Cortex Nootropics podcast.
I mean, look, being an entrepreneur, I would not go through the rest of my life without taking nootropics. Racetam, Piracetam, Racetam, uridine monophosphate, CDP-choline, Modafinil, Nootropic, forget it. You can always have a better brain.
The Cortex Nootropics podcast is about to begin.
You know what we say, an epic intro for an epic podcast. Welcome, my friends, to podcast number 18 on the Cortex Nootropics podcast. We're going to talk about the motivation Racetam, really, the Modafinil-like Racetam. You know, we're in the process of basically finishing up the Racetam God Guide, which is a nootropics digital book that explains every major Racetam, really the top 8 significant Racetams folks use for nootropic benefits for nootropic-related reasons. And, you know, the sector on Phenylpiracetam discusses how it is essentially comparable to Modafinil. And one of the most interesting things, which we're going to talk about in this podcast coming up, is basically its effect on dopamine and how that is more than likely, at least in combination with its cholinergic effects, responsible for the profound stimulation and motivation effects that folks get from it. I mean, there's no question about it. Phenylpiracetam is unique compared to other Racetams, right? And on specifically in that mental energy thing, but more specifically in that motivation thing that it normally induces in people. We're going to talk about that in just a minute, but preliminary stuff out of the way. If you've not tried the Cortex Nootropic Stack, let me just be clear. We created a commercial nootropic stack, pre-made stack, sells in 12 countries. It's been out in the market for a year and a half. It's one of the most powerful natural nootropic compounds you can get. You know, I had the intention of building a stack for many years since I've been taking nootropics. But when I started building the stack, it was like, all right, let's look at what we're using that's really, really benefiting me and working well. And let's try to modify it and make it better. The other major intention, because I was using a stack at the time that was like allowing me to run a company for 18 hours, and it was like profound. I was like, this is the best, you know, natural stack there is. And then also, you know, the idea was, look, let's create a Modafinil-like effect or a Phenylpiracetam-like effect with a natural stack. You know, is that possible? Can we do it? We put it together. We made it happen. We did a lot of R&D, a lot of beta testing, and we put it all together in a stack that the market says, you know, it is in fact comparable to Modafinil. It's called Cortex. Get it at livecortex.com. It's very powerful. Combines uridine monophosphate, CDP-choline, and artichoke extract for a very particular onset, very particular motivating, speed of processing, verbal fluency, effect duration, and a very nice, smooth descending, you know, dissension, if that's a word, down to regular, still optimized baseline. We also added a titch of Bacopa monnieri, which is an ages-old Ayurvedic herb that over time improves memory by working on neurite outgrowth, kind of like the primary ingredient in the Cortex stack uridine monophosphate does. Get it at livecortex.com. Use the coupon code 5. That'll save you $5. Also, we wrote a Nootropics Ebook. It is a God Guide, a digital God Guide on nootropics. And by God Guide, I mean it's everything you need to know about nootropics. It's the best stacks there are. Some of the most powerful stacks, with stacks of compounds of every compound you can think of, from phenylpiracetam to Nootropic to oxiracetam to uridine monophosphate to racetam to piracetam, theanine, caffeine combinations to the mighty Aphenils, armodafinil, adrafinil, regular modafinil, to optimized mitochondria stacks, ALA stacks, Alcar stacks, Alcar-racetam stacks, and basically everything else you can think of. It's called Smarter, Better, Faster. It is profoundly powerful, profoundly useful, has a lot of utility, and basically explains things that folks want to know about nootropics that might take you 10 years to learn. You know, about like the massive convenience of Racetam in sublingual doses. It's 5 to 15 milligram sublingual doses because it's so easy. Because it requires such low doses, and doing it sublingually is just like once and done, it's over. Distinctions for days. When the Smarter, Better, Faster Nootropics Guide, it's a tagline is literally a surgical guide to using the best nootropics for total mental dominance. It is strong, it is powerful, it is useful. Get it at livecortex.com. Use the coupon code 5, save $5. It's $24 price point, gets it down to $19. Okay. Also, today's the 10th of August. So listen, we are launching, it's either the 10th or 11th, depending on when this podcast goes up. And we are launching the Racetam God Guide. That's launching on the 12th. All the major 8 Racetams, Phenylpiracetam, oxiracetam, Pramiracetam, Piracetam, Racetam, Nephiracetam, Fasoracetam, and more, stacks, accompanying stacks, sublingual strategies, otherwise protocols, mechanisms of action, dose ranges, basic explanations, everything else you can think of around racetams. Imagine this, one solid place to go to get everything you need to know about racetams, to include powerful stacks. That's going to be called the Racetam God Guide. There'll be an awesome tagline that'll be launching in the next couple days. It'll be launched on the 12th of August, 2017. So get it at livecortex.com if this is after the 12th of August. If not, keep it in your mind because it's launching on the 12th, and grab it at livecortex.com when it comes out. Okay. Let's talk about phenylpiracetam. Phenylpiracetam's mechanisms of action are a little unelucidated. They haven't really been divulged because they don't seem to be understood. But there's look, it's postulated in the nootropics community that it's cholinergic like other nootropics, other Racetam nootropics, that it works on either increasing the signal strength or the signaling, or somehow otherwise positively modulates acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter. But, for a lot of folks, it is motivating. And so, there are many people sort of talking within the nootropic sphere, various nootropics Facebook groups, the nootropics subreddit, that it's dopaminergic because it's motivating. Phenylpiracetam is the type of racetam that you take and 20, 30 minutes later, you're like, wow, not only does my working memory, do I seem to have better working memory, but I'm motivated to work. I want to get stuff done, and I physically feel like I'm strong. It's definitely unique and should be separated from other racetams in this regard. And there's somebody who attempted to basically file a patent to use phenylpiracetam to improve fatigue-related diseases that particularly affect brain function and induce brain fatigue. To use phenylpiracetam, and one of their explanations in this patent is that phenylpiracetam, they found in various studies, is a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. Who would have known? Nobody really talks about that. Phenylpiracetam being a dopamine reuptake inhibitor. This is why it stacks very well with tyrosine, which is something I've come to find out over the years. This is why this is likely why it's motivating for a lot of folks. This is why it stacks even profoundly well with cholinergics, because everyone knows, and if you don't, you can stack cholinergics with dopaminergics, and if you find the right dose of the right compound, you can really get a good effect. Like you can put uridine, CDP choline, L-tyrosine, DHA and a B complex together in particular doses and get like a profoundly powerful synergistic experience. In fact, a lot of folks put the Cortex stack together with Siltep, and think of it as like an NZT type effect, and that's because you're powerfully working on dopamine, and you're working on the cholinergic system synergistically. So, isn't that interesting about phenylpiracetam, that it's a dopamine reuptake inhibitor? So let's just talk about dose ranges quick on phenylpiracetam so that folks get an understanding of how to use the compound if this is the first time you're fussing with it, or it's just your introduction to phenylpiracetam. We always got to get that stuff out of the way to make sure we're clear. And here it is. Basically, it's on the very low end at 25 milligrams to on the high end at 200 milligrams. Now, you could go above 200 milligrams of phenylpiracetam, take to 250, 275, 300 milligrams of phenylpiracetam. But for a lot of people, because of the way that it's affecting brain function, it's probably going to be a little overly stimulatory, or you might sort of interrupt cholinergic or dopaminergic signaling in a way that's just a little unbalanced, and you might not get the best effect. Might not have side effects, but you might not be able to really surgically use the compound. Using nootropics is about surgically using nootropics. It's not about taking a bunch of compounds and whatever quantities you sort of hellishly throw together and be like, whatever, let's go. You really got to be smart about that stuff. And that's my dose range, and that's the generally applicable dose range. The more specific applicable dose range that I've found with most people, myself included, and a lot of folks that email me back and forth, because look, remember, we're like this robust nootropics information source. We put out so much content. I get emails literally every day, multiple times a day, of folks talking about their experiences. I've collected a lot of experiences of folks taking different nootropics, Racetam specifically, and in phenylpiracetam, the generally applied more specific dose range for a whole lot of folks is 25 to 75 milligrams. Most people find their sweet spot right within that range, and for me, basically a perfect dose of phenylpiracetam is right around 75 milligrams for me. So that's the dose range. 25 to 200 on the general end, 25 to 75 being a little more specific. What you can expect from phenylpiracetam is not only an improvement in working memory, but a strong stimulatory response and a powerful motivating effect. It stacks well with other cholinergics, stacks well with Noopep, stacks well with tyrosine, stacks well with other dopaminergics. And in general, kind of like Racetam, because it requires low doses, it's a very convenient Racetam. It's convenient and it requires super low doses to get a good effect. And it's convenient in that, if you dose it sublingually, it's not a whole lot of powder you got to put under your tongue. And because it's such a low dose, you still get a great effect. So convenience in Racetams is critically important. Like looking at Piracetam, for example, it's like you got to take 1 gram to 4 grams to really get the best effects in a lot of cases. And Racetam and oxyracetam, obviously to a lesser extent, but still you're talking about 700 to 1,000 milligrams of powder. With phenylpiracetam, it's just not the case. You're talking about substantially lower quantities. You can sublingually dose it, and that makes it a super convenient Racetam. Okay, as with any other piece of content that we put out, I want to be as valuable as possible. So I'm going to give you 3 phenylpiracetam stacks that you can take right away to get good brain performance. These are stacks that I've sort of figured out over the course of just about 5 years, because I've been fussing with phenylpiracetam for just about 5 years. I got into it a little late, was really spent a whole lot of time on piracetam, Alcar, some time on pramiracetam, of course, oxyracetam, and aniracetam in the beginning, and then didn't get to phenylpiracetam until just about year 3 of me taking nootropics. But thereafter, I experimented with it and a bunch of different compounds, and I found basically what works for me and a whole lot of people, as I've suggested this to a lot of folks, some of the most effective phenylpiracetam stacks. I'm taking these stacks directly from the Racetam God Guide, guys. Okay, so just to give you an idea of the power of that guide, again, if this is after the 12th of August 2017, you got to get that guide at livecortex.com. It's called the Racetam God Guide. Get it at livecortex.com. Use the coupon code 5. That'll save you $5 off. And here are the 3 stacks. Number 1, 150 milligrams of phenylpiracetam, 500 milligrams of L-tyrosine, 800 micrograms, very important, micrograms of iodine, and 400 micrograms of selenium. Okay, again, 150 milligrams phenylpiracetam, 500 milligrams tyrosine, 800 micrograms rather of iodine, very important, micrograms, not milligrams, and then 400 micrograms of selenium. So the basic gist of this is this: because of phenylpiracetam's dopamine reuptake inhibition properties, it stacks well with L-tyrosine. L-tyrosine is a dopamine enhancer, dopamine basically precursor to 3 neurotransmitters, but one of them is dopamine. The reason stacking iodine and selenium is particularly useful with tyrosine combined with phenylpiracetam is because iodine and selenium are used in conjunction with tyrosine by the thyroid gland to make thyroid hormones. And the thyroid gland is responsible for a whole bunch of things in your body, not the least of which, and most relevant to this, is energy production and energy metabolism, okay? So that's why it's important to stack iodine. I think you should stack iodine with tyrosine kind of in general. That's an aside. And selenium, because all those synergize together. And stacking it with phenylpiracetam provides a very, very, very powerful motivating effect. So the standout effect of this stack is motivation and mental energy. I mean, this will get you to want to sit down and do a whole lot of work and not move from your seat even to pee. Pretty powerful. Number 2, 75 milligrams phenylpiracetam, 200 milligrams CDP choline, 100 milligrams uridine monophosphate, and a B complex. This here is like akin to all the, I've got endless amounts of super powerful, like limitless like stacks, just very powerful stacks. And this is one of those stacks. Uridine and CDP choline is a very particularly powerful combination. That's why we put it in Cortex. That's like the real workhorse in the Cortex stack. Stacking a B vitamin with choline, a choline source, and uridine is particularly useful because B vitamins in conjunction with uridine upregulate neurogenesis, the process of spawning new neurons. But combining phenylpiracetam with CDP choline and with uridine monophosphate is a particularly dopaminergic cocktail. I mean, this is massively facilitative of dopamine, that it's totally insane. This is a motivation and drive you to action productivity stack. CDP choline and uridine monophosphate both work on modulating and improving the functionality of dopamine, the neurotransmitter, and specifically by modulating dopamine receptors. They also both partially will increase acetylcholine in the brain and modulate acetylcholine receptors, which synergizes well with any racetam that works on the cholinergic system, like phenylpiracetam is postulated to do. And together, I mean, again, guys, this is one of those stacks that you take and you're like, Jesus. I mean, this is why we're into nootropics, because of these kind of powerful stacks. The third stack is a sublingual phenylpiracetam stack that I want. It's a very simple sublingual phenylpiracetam stack, but don't let that fool you. That often fools a lot of people in the nootropic sphere. If it's simple, that must mean it's like not as powerful. Not even remotely close to being true. In fact, some of the most powerful stacks I've come to learn that work extremely well are minimalist stacks. Okay, so here's the stack. It's 50 milligrams sublingual phenylpiracetam. That's taking the compound, putting it under your tongue, letting it sit for 5 or so minutes to fully dissolve into your bloodstream via those veins under your tongue, and having it being uber convenient and require super low doses in that regard, and then stacked with 500 milligrams of oxiracetam. Oxiracetam is another racetam nootropic that works on modulating AMPA receptors to provide a stimulatory effect. It also releases extra acetylcholine from the hippocampus and probably has a whole bunch of other properties that make it pretty epic, not the least of which is that it's neuroprotective. Okay, so 50 milligrams sublingual phenylpiracetam, 500 milligrams of oxiracetam. I'm going to read you the quick excerpt from the Racetam God Guide, which explains that stack. This is a power, focus, and motivation stack. The oxiracetam phenylpiracetam combination is known in the nootropic sphere as being particularly effective. Sublingually dosing phenylpiracetam with added oral oxiracetam provides a synergistic, cholinergic, dopaminergic, motivating, focus, and brain energy effect. For those of you that are going to require a choline source with this, then you might want to we always say like sort of optional choline source. Some folks require the extra infusion of choline, the B vitamin, to provide more acetylcholine to put up with the usage of particularly cholinergically signaling nootropics like oxiracetam and phenylpiracetam. And so, I'd suggest shooting, if you're one of those people, shoot for 300 to 500 milligrams of choline bitartrate as a starter. That's always the best to start with, because it doesn't provide an acute response. It just provides the usable acetylcholine, so it won't fuss with the effects of the racetams. But I mean, if you respond well to higher doses or relatively regular doses of the bioavailable acetylcholine precursors like alpha GPC or CDP choline, shoot for 100 to 300 milligrams of your choline source of those two of choice and go to town. Okay, those were 3 powerful phenylpiracetam stacks. That is the basic gist of phenylpiracetam. I think the important note infused into this podcast of stacking phenylpiracetam with L-tyrosines can be particularly helpful for a lot of people in the realm of inducing motivation and really putting the brain in a place where it's got powerful energy. And look, the legality of phenylpiracetam is pretty lenient. I mean, in America, you can have phenylpiracetam, you can purchase phenylpiracetam. UK is a little iffy. I mean, UK has really just become I don't know, just sort of oddly fascist in a way, just like, super oddly, overly controlling on particularly, powerful nootropic chemicals. They wrote this law recently called the sort of something to the effect of the psychoactive substances law, which effectively prevents a lot of substances from being imported into the country, and nootropics took a big hit here. Racetams are part of them, so you'll have to check with. You have to Google around and sort of read the laws and see what's going on in the UK, but in many other developed countries, to include Canada, phenylpiracetam is legal to have. The United States, it's open game, and for most of the more advanced sort of research chemical-based nootropics companies, particularly serotropic, phenylpiracetam is easy to acquire. Same with Nootropic Source, Nootropics Depot, the last I checked. And again, one of the suggestions that I always make to people is go on Alibaba, Google around, ask people in forums, to try to find sources in China. Okay, there are very many companies that email us hundreds of times a week that say, look, we've got bulk powder alpha GPC, bulk powder phenylpiracetam, bulk powder piracetam, all this stuff, and those folks are easy to find if you're looking in the right places. Okay, so find yourself some backup sources, find yourself some China sources, and get yourself some phenylpiracetam. This is one of the most powerful racetams. I couldn't put it in my top 12 in a recent video that we did on top 12 of my favorite nootropics because it wouldn't fit. I sat there for a minute. For a while, I was like, I gotta add phenylpiracetam because it's so great. I just couldn't take out L-theanine, couldn't take out coliracetam, couldn't take out uridine, couldn't take out tyrosine, couldn't take out theacrine, couldn't take out oxiracetam, ataracetam. These are my favorite nootropics. But if I did a top 15 phenylpiracetam, it would absolutely be there. I hope this has been super valuable. I hope you can take these stacks, apply these stacks, these stacks, use these stacks. I hope you get not only utility but entertainment out of these podcasts. I appreciate the fact that now this movement of granularly breaking down nootropics, not overhyping them, discussing their side effects, because they do, have side effects if you take them in excessive quantities, being logical about this stuff, but giving them their due credit. Nootropics are exceptionally powerful. They're amazing. Has pervaded through the web. I mean, we're getting so many more subscriptions on the YouTube channel, so many more subscriptions, and so much more interaction, so many more views on the podcast. It's unbelievable, the metrics of folks looking at our stuff and checking out our content, and that's what we wanted to do. When I set out to build effectively the most robust source of content for nootropics on the web, I was very highly annoyed. And I was annoyed because going to the Nootropics subreddit, basically people treat you like crap. And folks think every question's a dumb question. And if you're new, or if you're 5 years in, or if you're 10 years in, or 3 years in, but you have a question about something, like folks look at you like you're crazy just to have a question about something. Those environments are terrible to be in. I rarely spend time at the Reddit, the Nootropics Reddit subreddit as a good example, just to maybe find some experiences. And there are good people there, but largely, the tone is negative, and I hated that. Longevity is really cool, and there's a lot of great people there, but a lot of other places on the web are just like that. Plus, there really isn't one combined place which has every facet of consumable nootropic, consumable web content, video, audio, blog posts that talks about nootropics. There isn't one. It's us. And so I set out to become it because I was basically PO'd because I couldn't find it anywhere. That didn't exist anywhere. And we created it, and it's making a big impact, and I'm super happy about it, and I'm proud of it, and I'm look, I don't want to pander to you guys, but the bottom line is, like, we couldn't do this without you. There's no question about it. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks for listening. Check us out on YouTube if you're not listening to this on YouTube at the Cortex Labs, Nootropics, and Smart Drugs channel. Check us out on the web at livecortex.com/blog. We've got endless amounts of information on the blog about everything you can think of, all the racetams, Noopet, Modafinil, everything else in between, microdosing, sublingual dosing, stacking, and everything else in between. If you have not tried the Cortex Nootropics stack, I put a lot of love into this stack, guys. A lot of research, a lot of science behind uridine and CDP choline, a lot of beta testing. Man, we sent so many batches of beta tests out to get the most powerful refinement of these ingredients to create the best stack. We tried to mimic modafinil. We were successful according to our users. And it's a very powerful stack. Get it at livecortex.com. Use the coupon code 5. That'll get you $5 off. The Smarter, Better, Faster Nootropics Guide. You think this podcast was valuable. This was a smidgen of the value that's in that book. We've got information, like I just divulged, all over that thing. You can download it for Kindle, iPad, iPhone, Android, Windows tablet, any Android tablet, PDF, whatever you want. Everything's digital these days, so that thing is digital. It's stack written, distinction written, questions answered written. It's even got a section about Phenybut. The thing is very powerful. Smarter, Better, Faster, a surgical guide to using nootropics for total mental dominance. Get it at livecortex.com. And if you are interested in learning more about racetams, we rewrote the God Guide on it. It's called the God Guide, the Racetam God Guide. If it's after the 12th of August 2017, get that at livecortex.com. If it's before it's launching soon, cross your fingers it's coming out. And hey, thanks so much for listening. We will talk to you very soon. Many more podcasts coming out. We're cranking out a whole lot of podcasts coming up. We've got so much to talk about. Thanks for being with me.